I know that if I asked you how you were today, you'd say you were fine. I also know what that fine means. It means you're alive, you're clicking through the to-do list every day, and haven't collapsed yet. I also know the collapse that's happening behind closed doors. You wonder why no one sees you cracking from the inside. Your 50% capacity is someone else's 150, so it always looks like you're doing just fine. You fooled everyone, even yourself, into thinking you don't need more than what you already have. But baby, you need so much more. I want you to know that I see you. I see your great worth, your beautiful strength, your resilience and tenacity. I reach past your intellect and speak to your spirit to say that you are so much more than the trials you've been through. You're not defined by who touched you, who left you, who ignored you, or who betrayed you. You're so much more than the men that laid you waste. I know you didn't feel like you had a choice in giving everyone what they wanted from you. But I am here to help you walk in your power unapologetically. I wrote this book to help you. I'm bearing my scars so you know you're not alone. I want you to know that there's hope and freedom for you. Not just survival or the everlasting wait for something good to finally happen. There's more to the love story than the preachers told you. Playing their game never worked anyway, now has it? Process your story while you read mine. This isn't meant to merely entertain you or to cause pity for me. I need you to know that walking through your own darkness is the way to the light. The only way out is through, and the only one to decide to take the road less traveled is you. No one can choose greatness over mediocrity but you. The status quo is to think that because what happened is over and you're functioning, that you've survived and nothing else needs to be done. But the greatness within you lays dormant, and those you're meant to feed your truth are starving. Work through this, my dear, work through this. We need you. On the other side of working through your trauma, so much love. Being able to receive the loving touch of your bridegroom, making up for all the touches that took from you. He sees you too. I've been sent to give you this message because he wants to breathe life into your very soul. In all the places that have gone uncared for, neglected, and rotting. If you allow his light on the pages to touch you there, you'll see that this book will breathe life into your relationship with yourself. That changes your love story and trickles through all areas of your life. Most importantly, this book will breathe life into your relationship with hope. I can't wait to introduce you to your true self. And if you're ready to, then let's go. Good evening, everyone. This is Dallas calling the Rebound Coach, and I am so glad that you're here today. Today, if you have come in other the Rebound Coach live episodes, this one's going to be a short one, really short today. And I just want to raise some questions for you. So the name of today's episode is, Are You Emotionally Colorblind? If it's your first time to the Rebound Coach Live, I'm so glad you're here today. I just want to share a tiny bit about why we found ourselves in a meeting tonight, why we find ourselves crossing paths. I'm known as the Rebound Coach, and a coach helps people get unstuck. For me, I serve high-achieving women of faith who've lived through emotional or spiritual abuse and want to reclaim territory in their relationship with themselves. And emotional abuse and spiritual abuse didn't make sense for me. I was a person who grew up in a strong faith-based home. Two parents who loved God and loved each other, were married for a lifetime. at the same time, I was molested from the age of 8 till about 16. And that radically changes how you see yourself. In a household of faith, how I saw God and how I related to men. Fast forward, when I met the man that I married and later divorced, there were definitely red flags. But I, as a woman of faith, believed that God was with us. And because of that, I believed that no matter what trouble would come, we'd be able to overcome it. And so trouble came right away and never quite went away. It just kind of went back and forth between what I call coping and crisis. The crisis over the years became more often and worse and worse. And so um, things kind of came to a head at beginning of 2020 when he left for another woman. And um, about a day later, I found out him and that woman were plotting my murder, y'all. It was not cute at all. So needless to say, everything kind of comes to a halt when that happens. Your whole life, you're evaluating everything. And I had a choice to make. I could allow that person who had really defined my identity, who I had allowed to define my identity, tell me who I was and what I was allowed to have, or I could choose life. And so I've written a book. It's called I Choose Life, Rewrite Your Love Story and Change Your Legacy. And it's a life source, and it's a roadmap for those who have lived through betrayal, trauma, or abuse in your relationship. And you'd like to be free. And so um, I am simulcasting on Clubhouse, and I just want to give my apologies that my volume is low. I'm out and about and working with a couple things right now, so I'm doing my best. But this portion will be short, and then we'll do the after party on Clubhouse. In case you're wondering, if you're watching on Facebook, on what are you talking about, I am also simulcasting on Clubhouse. You can find the room. It's called Are You Emotionally Colorblind? Listen Then Share, and it's under the Club Sanctuary XP, which I'm happy to share also with you about. But just to very, very quickly hit on, are you emotionally colorblind? What in the world does that even mean? So when I was thinking about taking back your relationship with yourself, that's what I do. I help women reclaim territory in their relationship with themselves. So what does that mean? Sometimes when you have there's things missing in your identity you don't even know are missing, and you don't find out, and it's kind of like things just kind of went bland, right? If you've ever lost your sense of taste or your sense of smell, things just kind of get bland, and maybe you don't notice right away. Maybe it's something slow, and that often is the way things happen in abusive relationships. It's not immediate. It's not like sometimes people have the experience where they have a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, where somebody's behaving beautifully until the wedding day, and then they become a monster, right? Like that does happen. In the case of emotional abuse, I would say it's much more subtle. It is slowly but surely becoming something you don't want to live in anymore. And I know for myself, so it's a story I haven't shared yet on Facebook, but I will. For years, I wasn't really allowed to sing. So when I met my former husband, my ex-husband, I was singing in a 100-person choir. I was doing a whole bunch of stuff, and performance-wise and performing arts-wise, really enjoying my life. And part of emotional abuse is isolation. And so when there's a spiritual component involved, we were pulled out of church. I was pulled out of church. And not that church makes someone's relationship with God happen. Okay, so I'm not saying that, but there's lots of benefits for church, and one of them is community. Good, bad, or indifferent, community has its value. And so being pulled out of your community is an abuse tactic. And that's what happened to me. So suddenly God said, and I'm in air quotes if you can't see me, suddenly God said we couldn't attend that church anymore. And then we went to this itty bitty small church, and I asked about, hey, I want to sing on the praise team. And he's like, nope, God said you can't do that. And so there was a lot of, you can't do this because God said, you can't do that because God said. And how can you argue with God, right? It's one thing to say to your husband, hey, you're wrong. It's something else to say, well, God's wrong. And he knew that. He knew my value system and how I honored God, and how if I felt like something wasn't going to honor God, I wouldn't do it. And that was something that was used against me. And often in abuse, it's not only the addition of painful things like painful words or painful situations or physical pain where someone's beating you or hurting you, right? It's the draining out of pleasure, the draining out of things that you enjoy, the criticisms of. So it's not always like, hey, I disallow you to do that. It can be like, are you sure? You sure you want to do that thing that you say you love? Like, oh, that's so whatever. Like, it's so below you, beneath me. Like, you can go ahead and do that, but I'm better than that, right? So all of those things are abuse tactics, and they cause us to lose pleasure. And so when life is bland, you turn into this person who's just surviving, just trying to make it the next day. And I was in that place feeling suicidal because I had no hope, because I couldn't end the pain and there was no pleasure to be found. And the good things that were around me, I couldn't find pleasure in because I was too busy surviving. And maybe you find yourself there. What I want to ask, and I'm going to transition on to Clubhouse in just a minute, but what I want to ask, if you're watching this recording, feel free to put it in the comments. You can DM me. I want to know, what have you allowed others and yourself to restrict yourself from? So what, in my case, I was restricted from singing. I was restricted from worshiping. I was restricted from a lot of things over the years. It got bigger and bigger. The restrictions got bigger and bigger as I allowed them to increase. And I want you to hear that, because we think about kidnapping situations where somebody, physically removes a child from their home and holds them up in a basement and abuses them, right? Like, that's horrific. There's also this slow kind of, crabs in a pot kind of situation where it doesn't get boiling hot right away. It's just kind of slowly increasing. And so as I allowed my ex-husband to tell me, well, God said you can't do this, and then I wouldn't do that, and then something else would happen. God said you can't do that. And even before then, he would say, well, God told me I can't do it, right? So there was a lot of situations where he would put restrictions on himself, and I was not restrict me, and he wouldn't tell me I couldn't for a while, until eventually he'd say, oh, well, I'm head of the house. And because I'm head of the house, nobody can do this in this house. Eventually I couldn't kiss my children on the lips. I couldn't celebrate my birthday. I couldn't have a vision board. Like, it got intense and some other things too. So in your own life, what are some things that you've allowed others and yourself to restrict you from? What lie did you believe that got you to agree with that? I believed, this is my husband. I have to obey him. If I don't obey him, I'm disobeying God. And God's not going to be pleased with me. And this is the right thing to do, is to say yes to whatever his demands are. Right. And also keeping the peace. That was another big important thing. Like, every battle wasn't a hill to die on. Right. I wasn't going to fight over singing. Right. But I did fight over things about the children. So you kind of find what's important, taking certain things from the children. I was like, no, I'm gonna fight you on that one, because their life is impacted, right? So what lie did you believe to get you to agree to that? And then what can you do to reclaim that territory? I can tell you, in the example of singing and worship, I love to worship God in song. And that was literally taken from me in my marriage, to the point where I couldn't like sing out. Even at home, I couldn't sing out in worship, and that the atmosphere was not an atmosphere that provided for that. So even if he didn't tell me like, hey, you're not allowed to sing here, but just the atmosphere we lived in was just so oppressive. So it didn't, I never wanted to, right? But I still had a heart to worship. So I would put my earbuds in and I would listen to worship, and I couldn't sing out, but I had an adult coloring book, and I would just sit and color and cry, and cry because I couldn't express. The beautiful thing is that shortly thereafter, so after everything happened, you know, I had to go get safe. Me and my children had to go get safe. And when we did, one of the first things that came out was my piano. It finally had a place in my home again. It had been, walled up or put in storage shortly after I got married. And for 10 years, it was away. So that was one of the first things that came out and had its own place to live in my home. And slowly but surely, the song returned, and I'm able to express myself now anytime I choose to. And today it's a matter of allowing the pleasure to flood back, the things that you love. And so that's it. I just want to encourage people today to ask yourself, what are some things that you've allowed others and yourself to restrict you from? What lie did you believe that got you to agree to that restriction? And then what can you do to reclaim that territory, even if your whole life can't change yet, right? So I wasn't ready until I was ready to make changes. And to be honest, it had to be a life or death situation for me to make those moves. And God knew that. So his grace was sufficient for me and is sufficient for you. But in the meantime, you can take back small pleasures. You can take back things that brought you joy. You can take back territory in your relationship with you. You can take back territory in your relationship with joy. I just want to encourage your heart for that today. And if you say, look, I've never heard of that, that sounds hard. We are doing something really special. I have the honor of creating sacred spaces for women to receive healing from trauma, healing from abuse, healing from like life, like straight up life, because that's enough. We have a beautiful thing called the Sanctuary Experience. It's coming up very soon, and on September 16th, 17th, and 18th. It is a VIP women's retreat in Clearwater Beach, Florida, and you're invited. Did you know that? You were invited. You're invited. I just want you to check that out. You can find out more information at thereboundcoach.com/sanctuary, thereboundcoach.com/sanctuary. So that's it. It's so fast today. I'm going to pop over to Clubhouse. If you would like to join me over there, you can search Dallas Cohen, Kohen. The name of the room is Are You Emotionally Colorblind? It's the pleasure being sapped out of your life. The club is Sanctuary XP Master Key Mindset. So thanks so much for joining me. If you're hearing the recording, thanks for watching the recording. We appreciate your time today. And until next time, folks, choose life.